Welcome and thank you for standing by. At this time, all participants are in a listen-only mode. Today's webinar is being recorded and the recording will be posted publicly. If you have any objections, you may disconnect at this time. Now, I'd like to turn the call over to Yara McSweeney. Yara, you may begin.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, My Congressional District. My name is Yara McSweeney, and I am a program analyst at the Census Bureau. I want to thank you for joining us today at the Back to Data Basics webinar series. This webinar series was created by the Census Academy team here at the Census Bureau. You can register for any of the webinars by visiting census.gov/academy. Before I introduce today's speaker, let's just go over a few housekeeping items. As I mentioned earlier, this webinar is being recorded. For your convenience, it will be posted to our Census Academy site within 30 business days. We'll post all supplemental materials, including the PowerPoint slides. In terms of how to ask questions during the webinar, you could submit your written questions using the Q&A panel, which is at the bottom center or right side of your WebEx screen. Please take a moment to locate that now. Once you found the Q&A panel, make sure you choose All Panelists from the drop-down menu. This will ensure we see your question. Also, we ask that you do not include any personal or business identifiable information with your questions. My colleagues, Marilyn Sanders and Colleen Joyce, will be monitoring the Q&A panel. As time allows, they will answer your question directly to the Q&A panel, or they will read them out loud to our presenter after his presentation. For any questions that are not answered, feel free to contact us at the contact information we'll provide later. Now let's talk about the chat panel. Look for it right next to the Q&A panel. Keep that channel panel open because this is where we will provide you with helpful links and other resources. Keep in mind you won't be able to respond to the chat. Chat is just for us to send you links, including our evaluation. As you know, we are in a visual environment and sometimes technical difficulties might occur. If you are having issues, try a different browser or consider logging out and coming back into the session. Lastly, throughout the webinar, a link where you can tell us how we did today will be provided in the chat. We are very interested in hearing how we are doing. All right, so with all of those administrative items out of the way, I'd now like to introduce today's speaker, Joe Quartullo. Thanks again for being here, Joe. The floor is yours.
Hello, and thank you everyone for attending today. Before we begin, please focus on this cover slide, which shows the southern area of Lake Michigan. The congestion of the congressional districts on the left side of the lake is representative of the density of the population of Chicago. The congressional districts on the bottom and the right side of the lake are larger, which tells us they are more sparse in population. Okay, thank you for holding on for me for a minute. A little bit about me. I've been with the Census Bureau for over 25 years. I was fortunate to have held several positions. Among others, I supervised the field staff that collected ACS data, or American Community Survey data, for about 6 years. I truly enjoy my job. My background is in both political science and sociology, and I get excited about social and economic data, and I'm always happy to share. Today, I'll be reviewing some basic information about the Census Bureau, the decennial census, that is the census that's conducted every 10 years, and the American Community Survey. My primary goal today, however, is to introduce you to a couple of tools that provide data for congressional districts and state legislative districts. One of those tools is named My Congressional District, and the other is named data.census.gov. I'll also tell you about Census Academy, and we'll be saving time for questions at the end. When it comes to data.census.gov, I want to mention that there's so much more that you can do with this tool, and I'm not going to have the time to cover most of that. However, if you're interested, I'll have a slide at the end of the presentation where you can view the website for Census Academy, which will give you an opportunity to look at data gems, which are brief videos about specific topics, look at pre-recorded webinars specifically on data.census.gov, and also it'll give you an opportunity, if you're interested, we can get you to contact one of the data dissemination specialists in your area to work with you individually. A little bit about the Census Bureau. The Census Bureau is the federal government's largest statistical agency, conducting more than 100 censuses and surveys each year, including the decennial census every 10 years, the American Community Survey, the Economic Census, a census of governments, and about at least 100 other surveys. Our mission is to serve as the nation's leading provider of quality data about its people and economy. Throughout the decade, to support the American Community Survey and several other ongoing surveys, we have 6 regional offices, and you can see them here on this map. Our census headquarters is located in Suitland, Maryland. In 1787, the Founding Fathers recognized the importance of a census for our new nation and inserted this in Article 1, Section 2 of the Constitution. 3 years later, in 1790, the first census of the United States was conducted. This has continued always in the years that end in 0. In 2030, we will be conducting the census for the 25th time. One of the extra benefits of conducting the census each decade is that it shows how the nation's center of population continues to shift. For many years, the shift was towards the west, and more recently, we see a shift towards the southwest. This is assuming the country was a weightless flat plane and all 331 million of us weighed the same. The balance point in 2020 we found to be around Hartsville, Missouri. Again, this shows how the population has shifted throughout the decades. In continuing to talk about the decennial census, the reapportioning of representation and the redistricting of boundaries is primary. In addition is the distribution of federal funds and state and information for state and local government decision makers. We also support researchers and others that benefit from census data. This map shows the reapportionment of congressional seats as a result of the 2020 census. When we vote in November, these are the seats that we will be voting for. Note that the number of seats varies dramatically from state to state, with 6 states allotted only 1 seat, Texas allotted 38, and California has the most with 52. So what was asked on the 2020 census? Here are the questions that were asked. Notice these questions are mostly limited to basic demographic information. So after looking at this, how are we able to determine the median household income in state legislative district lower house 44, Virginia, is $96,000 a year? And how do we know that 69% of adults in the 18 to 64 age group speak Spanish in their home in Congressional District 15 in New York? Well, the answer to these questions is the second source of data we'll be looking at today, the American Community Survey. This is the Census Bureau's largest survey, and it covers 35 different topics or variables. The ACS is part of the decennial census program. It began in 2005. It can give us social, economic, housing, and demographic data, not only for the nations, the states, and the counties, but many other geographies, including congressional districts and state legislative districts. ACS data is collected either online, by mail, or in person at about 3.5 million households per year. Before we look more closely at ACS and ACS data, let me show you how it differs from the decennial census. The ACS collects sample estimates, while the census, the decennial census, is the official count. The ACS, again, looks for, collects social, economic, housing, and demographic characteristics. The census, as we saw, those few basic questions on demographics. The ACS is concerned with the characteristics of population and housing, while the census is concerned with totals. The ACS gives us data every year. The census is a snapshot of one day in 1 year in time for the 2020 census. That was April the 1st of 2020. So the data for ACS they reflect a period of time, either a 1 year period or a 5 year period, whereas the data from this decennial census reflects only what the nation looked like on April the 1st of 2020. Here are some of the topics collected by the ACS: ancestry, veteran status, income, occupation, cost of utilities. Note that the DP numbers within each topic are representative of tables that include data, and I'll be mentioning them again later in the presentation. For example, DP04 contains housing data. There are actually hundreds of tables for each geographic area with ACS data, but these four are the most comprehensive. These tables can be found in data.census.gov, and we'll talk more about them soon. ACS data comes in different data sets. Remember, ACS reflects a period of time, not a point in time, like the decennial census. For large geographies with 65,000 people or more, the data becomes available around mid-September for the previous year. Unfortunately, ACS data collection in 2020 was severely impacted by the pandemic, and the 2020 one-year data for large geographies, 65,000 or more, was not published. When we look at the one-year data in the My Congressional District tool, it will reflect 2019 data. For mid-sized geographies, 20,000 people or more, a limited number of one-year tables are published. For all geographies, with the exception of census blocks, 5-year estimates are published. The 2020 5-year estimates, that is data collected from 2016 through 2020, is available. For state legislative districts, only 5-year data is available. For congressional districts, normally both 1-year and 5-year data is available. Shortly, when we look at My Congressional District tool, we'll see county business patterns. These will be coming from the economic programs. The Census Bureau publishes data for many geographies. Our focus today, again, will be on congressional districts and state legislative districts, upper and lower, but you probably recognize most of these other geographies as well. The Census Bureau publishes data in many different data tools, depending on the topic, the size, and the frequency. These are a few. Again, today's 2 tools are the ones that are highlighted. For the federal congressional districts, I'll demonstrate My Congressional District tool. For both the federal congressional districts and the state legislative districts, I'll show you data.census.gov. Let me show you what the cover page for My Congressional District will look like. And let me show you what the cover page for data.census.gov will look like. There's actually there's a cover page like this, where you can do a simple search by putting text or information in the text box. And there's also an advanced search that looks like this that uses filters. It uses filters, but it is very intuitive. I'm going to go over now, and we're going to take a look at my congressional district first. Okay, this is the data tool called My Congressional District. You can see the website at the top, www.census.gov/mycd. Let's go ahead and look at this tool first. Here we select the state and the district. Then we see that there's 6 icons, each of which contain American Community Survey data, except the last one, which contains business data from the county business patterns. If you don't know your congressional district, you can enter your zip code here. This will take you directly to the House of Representatives website. For the zip code I entered, there's 2 possible representatives because the zip code is split by 2 different congressional districts. In this case, if you still want to know your address, you would simply put your address in here, and it will take you directly to the web page for your representative. Next, we will select a state. But one other thing I should mention, I'll say I'll hold that and I'll mention that in the beginning. Here I'm going to select a state in my congressional district. Now remember, these are the federal congressional districts, not the state. I'm going to select Illinois, show you some of the data that we have for this specific district as well as all of the others. And I'm going to select District 3. Notice that the little map of Illinois here shows where District 3 is located in Illinois. And what we have highlighted here is the people icon, which means that the data in this chart or this table right below has lots of data about the people that live in this district. We can see that there's 702,000 people. And we can see that the breakdown by sex and age categories. The median age in that district is 40 years old, meaning that half the people living in the district are above 40 and half the people living in the district are below 40. And you can see a couple other broader age categories. We also have race data for this district, whether or not people are Hispanic, and for those that are Hispanic, a few Hispanic, of the popular, I should say, Hispanic subcategories. Place of birth data for native residents, whether they're born here or in this state or some other state, and ancestry data with most of the ethnic ancestry groups. We also have veteran data, how many veterans, and data for people that are identified as being disabled. And finally, we have data for people that lived elsewhere 1 year ago, specifically not exactly where they live, but did they live in the same county, did they live in a different county, etc. So this is all the people data. Now, if you were a congressional district member or staffer and you wanted to get an idea of what people are in your congressional district because you best want to serve them, you might want to, for example, in this situation here, this person might want to look at how many Polish Americans are in their congressional district because they may want to reach out to them for some specific reason or some specific way. And you can see in this congressional district in Chicago, there's almost 98,000 people that identify as Polish Americans. If we were to take that number for the United States, there's 9 million people that identify as Polish Americans. So this is all the information and the data you can get on people within your congressional district. Let's try another one, and we'll look at the workers this time. So I'm going to switch over to New York, and we're going to look at New York District 3. And we can see that this district is down here in the area, certainly in the area of New York City. So instead of people data, which is the same for the same categories that we just looked at, this time we're going to look at workers data and get some information about the working characteristics of the people that live in New York Congressional District 3. And so you can do this for any of the congressional districts. We got employment status. We have how do people get to work. The reason that we have all this information these are questions that are asked on the American Community Survey. That's one of the questions. How do you get to work? We have information on occupations, general occupations within, and we have information on industry. Finally, the class of worker, whether that's private, government, self-employed, in their own business, etc. For this congressional district, I'm interested in knowing that it's in the New York City area, I'm interested in what is the mean travel time to get to work? How long does it take the average New York commuter to get to work? This is 2019. And we have that here because that's one of the questions asked in the American Community Survey. How long does it take you to get to work? And we see that for people that live in this congressional district, it takes almost about 38 minutes for the average person to get to work. When we compare that to the national average is just about 28 minutes. So New Yorkers, on average, take 10 minutes more to get to work than those in the rest of the nation combined. So you can see that when you looked at people info and worker data, now let's look at housing. But let's choose another congressional district here. This time we can go to Florida. And the congressional district I'm interested in Florida is District 24. And you can see District 24 is in the southeastern part of the state in the Miami area. This time, instead of people or workers, we want to look at housing data. So what kind of housing data is in here? Housing occupancy data, whether homes are owned or occupied or vacant, I should say. Housing tenure data, owner occupied or renter occupied. Year the householder moved into the unit in specific year categories. The value of the house as identified by the respondent in the American Community Survey. So the median value of homes in this congressional district in 2019 was $259,000 and $259,100. Also, the mortgage status and selected monthly owner cost. How much does it take for owners? How much is that cost owners to live in this area? And we also have information for renters, the gross rent. So for this one, that's the category I'm interested in, the median rent. And the median rent in this congressional district in 2019 was $1,236. For the nation as a whole in 2019, the median rent was $1,097. So more expensive living in this area than over an average in the nation as a whole. Let's continue. We still have a couple more categories here. This time we'll go a congressional district in Tennessee. We'll pick Congressional District 9. We're going to look at the socioeconomic characteristics of Congressional District 9. And again, we'll go through the variables and the socioeconomic characteristics, which is where we find income and health insurance and percentage of those living in poverty as well. For this one, I want to look at what is the percentage of people under 18 living in poverty. So we have that here. We have people under 18. Almost 1 out of 3 residents in this area, which is the Memphis area, almost 1 out of 3 residents under 18 are living in poverty. When we compare that to the United States, that's about 17%. So it's almost double. Education is another category, which shows I'm going to leave this congressional district up for the sake of time, but which education shows the people that are enrolled in school, the number of people that are enrolled in school at different age groups, and the educational attainment for adults. So for this one, we'll say, what is the percentage of adults 25 and over that have a bachelor's degree or higher? And for this one, you can see it's about 24% of adults have a bachelor's degree or higher. If we compare that to the national average is 32.9%. So that's education. And finally, we want to look at business. There's business data in here. It does not come from the American Community Survey. It comes from the county business patterns, as spelled out right there. But this gives information on the number of paid employees by sector within your congressional district, the annual payroll by sector within your congressional district, and the total number of establishments by sector within your congressional district. For this one, I'm going to pick North Dakota, and I'm going to pick North Dakota only has one congressional district, so there's not much of a choice here. And we want to look at the payroll in North Dakota for people that are working in, we want to be in business, right? We want to payroll for North Dakota for people that are working in mining, quarrying, oil, and gas extraction. And what you could see here is that we have to add 3 zeros to this. This is in thousands. So $1.5 billion in payroll was paid in 2020 to people that work in the mining, quarrying, oil, and gas extraction industry in North Dakota. So those are the 6 categories that are available in data.census.gov. You can download this I'm not going to show you now, but you can download a CSV file and quickly put that into Excel. But I want to go now and show you the other data tool that I have, which is data.census.gov. So give me a minute to get that up. This one. Okay. Data.census.gov. Thought I had it ready, but it wasn't quite ready. Remember, for data.census.gov, there's 2 ways of getting data. There's the simple search, which you can put table number or text information right in the search bar, or there's the advanced search, which I'll show you in a minute. But let's do a simple search. And I'm going to put in text veterans. So that's my topic. And I'm going to get veteran data for the United States. If I didn't put in a geography, so the default is always going to be for the United States. So I'm going to look for the number of veterans now I'm going to be using the State House in State House District number 115 in Kansas. So I'm going to go to geography here using my filters, and there's lots of different geographies. If you remember, we looked at that chart, but this is all a list of different geographies. But what I'm interested in now is the state legislative district lower. So I'm going to click on state legislative district lower. My state that I want to choose is Kansas, and the district that I am interested in is 115. So there we have it. Get a bunch of tables. My geography is limited now. First, it's telling me that 6.2% of people that live in this district are veterans, but I'd like to look at the table. So you can look at these are all different tables that have veteran information in it. There's actually 45. I'm going to look at this one, which is veteran status. And I'm going to get a breakdown of veterans in this district. We have an estimate of the civilian population. Then we have an estimate of veterans and percent veterans and non-veteran information. I want to look at this table a little closer because I want to point out to you that all of these tables in data.census.gov provide a margin of error. Because remember, these are estimates. So what this is saying is that in this district, there's 15,773 people, plus 470 or minus 470. So there's a range around 15,773, which is the middle estimate. If I'm not interested in the margin of error, I can just click that and the margins of error go away, and that leaves us only the estimates. I want to do another one for you, but this time I'm going to use the advanced search. And in order to start over in data.census.gov, you simply come up here and click the Census Bureau. This time I'm going to use advanced search, and I'm going to use only filters. So I want to get information on language spoken in the home. So topics, you have to think about these a little bit, but I want information about populations and people, and then I want language data. So my first filter chip, which went up here in the top left, says language spoken at home. But I want it for a specific district. So this time I'm going to go to geography, and I'm going to select a state senatorial district. Now there's always more than one way to do things. And instead of scrolling down looking for the geography, once I put in the word state here, it'll bring me up just to the ones directly to the state, the S. But this time I want the upper district, and we'll do Pennsylvania. And we want State Senate District 30. Same thing, bunch of tables. First, we get the statistic we want at the top, language other than English spoken in the home. But then we can look at a bunch of different tables that have characteristics of the people, where they were born, all of this information about people, the language that people speak, and characteristics about those people. Let's look at the first table. Again, this is State Senate District 30 in Pennsylvania, and we're looking for language data. And we will get the language data. We will get, this is for a population of people over 5. And we can get, if we scroll over, we can get the people who speak English only very well, or people who speak people less than very well. So if you are interested in that, this specific table gives us the language spoken at home and whether or not it's very well or not. Now, there's a few languages in here, Spanish and other Indo-European and Asian and Pacific Islanders, but there's a much more detailed table with many languages in there. So if you're interested in Swahili or some other language, you would look for that specific table, but I'm not going to be able to show you that today. So data.census.gov, again, it has a simple search where you can just put in some text here, and it has an advanced search where you could use the filters. I want to show you 4 tables that would give you the most bang for your buck, whether you are a state legislative district or a congressional district. And those are the DP tables that I mentioned in the slide. The first we'll look at is DP02. And you could put a table number in here. So I want to say DP02. It's going to give me the default for this table for the United States. But I want information on we'll say for this one, we'll say a lower house. So we'll pick, again, a state legislative district, lower house in New Jersey. And we want state legislative district 38. And now we have the DP02 table only for that state legislative district. And this is the table that gives us the social characteristics. So it gives us how people live in households by type, relationship of each person to the head of the household, whether or not people are married. Again, this all comes from the American Community Survey. Information on breakdown by sex, males and females. Information on fertility. Information on grandparents, especially those that take care of their grandchildren in this state legislative district only. And we saw this before: school enrollment, educational attainment, veteran status, disability, place of birth. All of this data is in this one table. So this will save you a lot from going from table to table. World region of birth, for those that are foreign born, where were they born? Language data, and then finally ancestry. Remember, we looked at this for the Polish population in a congressional district in, I think that was Illinois in the beginning. Well, this specific state legislative district in New Jersey has 10,838 polls. Again, you could reduce, or I should say eliminate, the margin of error. You could also easily put this table into Excel so that you can manipulate it in different ways that you want. And even after you modify it, for example, I'm going to get rid of the margin of error, and then I'm going to download it in Excel. Even after I modify it, I'm going to get the modified version of the table in Excel. So you should see on my screen an Excel table. Let me open that up, and then I'm going to go to the data part of this. This first page is all the information, and here's the data. So if I wanted to add, combine, do averages, or anything like that with this data, I could easily put it in Excel because we have a Excel button in data.census.gov, and you don't really have to do much more with it than that. If you want to work with a CSV file for other reasons, you can do that as well. You can transpose the data too, meaning you could put what's at the top on the side and what's at the side on the top. I find this awkward, but there may be situations where you might want to look at the data like this. But I don't usually use that. And then you can hide certain categories as well. So this was the first data table I wanted to show you in data.census.gov, that you can get the maximum amount of social characteristics for your specific state legislative or congressional district. But we have three other tables. DPO3 is economic data. So it's the same thing, but it's different data, all related to economic. And since I didn't pick a geography again, I'm getting the default of the United States. This time I want to filter, and I'm going to go to Hawaii. So I'm going to pick a geography, and I want to put the state legislative district. Remember, you could scroll down here or just put in the word state. I want an upper legislative district, and I want it's in Hawaii. So this is the DPO3 table. I'm just using Hawaii as an example, and we'll select this one, State Senate District in Hawaii, State Senate District 18. There's the DPO3 table with all the economic characteristics of the people in this district in Hawaii. And you can see it has employment status, commuting to work. Remember, we saw that a little bit ago with mean travel time to work, occupation, and industry, class of worker. Some of these things we saw before. Median family income, it's high, significantly high there, $116,000. The national median household income somewhere around $62,000. And more information, economic information about the people of Hawaii. So that's DPO3. And I'm going to just show you basically DPO4, which is going to give a lot of data about housing. So I'll just click that. And again, default is United States. And we want, this time we want Iowa. Congressional district too. Let's show that this also works for the larger congressional districts. So I'm going to filter geography. Instead of state legislative districts now, I'm going right to the congressional districts. And I want Iowa, Congressional District 2. There's my table. There should be my selected housing characteristics for housing information in Iowa. Occupied, vacant, how many units in the structure, when homes were built, average number of rooms, rooms that have houses, I should say, that have 9 or more rooms, houses that have 4 or more rooms. All this information about housing in Iowa, Congressional District 2. Also information on energy, house heating fuel, occupants per room, value, mortgage, lots of information about housing. So you want DPO2 will give you social characteristics. DPO3 will give you economic characteristics. DPO4 give us housing characteristics, and we'll also take a look at DPO5. And we want this one for Alabama. So I'm going to just do this. I still have Congressional District Iowa there. I didn't take it away, so I'm going to take it away. And I'm going to go to State Lower House District 23 in Alabama. So again, I can put in the word state here. Might be a little quicker. And I want Lower House, Alabama, to the top, and this time we want 23. So we're getting the DPO5 now for a state, again, for a state legislative district. This table, DPO5, gives demographic information, age, sex, age categories, race, broken down into a lot of different categories, Asian and Asian subcategories, Hawaiian and Hawaiian subcategories, multi-race, people that identify as more than one race, and the race, actual race, and finally it gives us Hispanic data and how many people age 18 or over are living in this district. This may be something, for someone that's running for office, to be not so much interested in the population of the district, but interested in the voting age population of the district. So I want to go back to my slides here and show you again that these, I don't know that we have this in the chat, but these are if you want the most information for your congressional district or state legislative district from data.census.gov, simply print these tables, and you won't have to go looking up every time you need the income data or the language data or the housing data. You'll have it there. Finally, I wanted to show you for the state legislative districts, we have a page, which I think that the link is in the chat, which shows how to get data for the state legislative districts in data.census.gov. Remember, all of this and a lot more can be found in the census.gov/academy tool. There's data gems, which are 3 or 4 or 5 minute instruction on how to do specific things, like how to print a table or how to print a PDF table. There's pre-recorded webinars on many, many topics, including pre-recorded webinars on data.census.gov, how to work more with the tables, how to work more with the filters. So you should take a look at this if you're interested in learning some more. And also, I want to let you know that I'm one of about 50 data dissemination specialists around the country that do this. And we're always happy to help you individually or your organization. In your case, your congressional district staff or your state legislative district staff. We're always happy to work with you to help you find the data that you need. So with that said, I'm going to turn it over to back to the webinar folk and ask them if there are any questions.
Wow, that was absolutely wonderful, Joe. And
Thank
do
you.
we have questions?
Okay.
Yes, the Q&A is full of questions. One person wanted to know, what did you say when you mentioned the margin of error? Did you say is best to select it or best to deselect it? They wanted a clarification.
That's really up to your needs. But we just want to make you know that these are estimates. These are not exact figures. So in some cases, you might want the margin of error. In other cases, you may not care. I should have mentioned that the margin of error that we provide is within the 90% confidence interval, meaning that if you see an estimate and a margin of error, you could say that the Census Bureau says that for example, in Cleveland, Ohio, there's 1 million people plus 100,000 or minus 100,000. And the Census Bureau is saying that at the 90% confidence interval. So we're 90% certain that the estimate lies into that range. But as far as whether or not you use it, I mean, some people may need to use it for research purposes, for publications and things like that. But it's possible that other persons are only interested in the estimate itself.
Okay, we have another question. Does my congressional district have previous districts? Can different versions be overlaid?
To my knowledge, it does not. I will refer that to Colleen Joyce. She's also on the line, and she works most closely with my congressional district. So to my knowledge, I have never seen older versions of it in there. But you can always get that data for previous years in data.census.gov. But can I ask Colleen, am I correct on that?
As far as I know, our office provides the data, but I'm a little less familiar with the actual tool. But as far as I know, you are correct, and I believe it is just the 1 year data.
The answer to that is no. When you go to my congressional district, it's only for the current data set, which I should also have mentioned in September. On September 15th, the 2021 data is coming out. So even though we're looking right now at 2019 data because we weren't able to publish 2020 data, it won't be long, just about 2 or 3 weeks before we'll have the newer data in data.census.gov and my congressional district. We'll have the 2015 1-year data.
One more question. Can you show how to combine multiple variables, for example, race and economic data for a district?
Okay. Let's see if I can get back to my, let me start over here. Okay, so I would do that with an advanced search. Because in an advanced search, you could select, you want to select race. So we're going to go to topics, race and ethnicity, and we'll take the Asian population. Then what was the other? You want economic data. So, okay, you go to topics again. So let me check Asian and get that filter. See that filter went up in the lower upper left. Now you want to ask about economic data. So I'm going to go back to topics and go to whether employment or income and education. Income, would that be the economic data that we're talking about here? Let's say income.
Yeah, they just said economic, but I think income.
Okay, so here we got 2 filters, Asian, income, and poverty. I could pick a geography here, or I could just leave it. And if I leave it, I'm going to get the national statistics. So I'm going to, with those 2 filters, I'm going to click search, and I'm going to get a bunch of tables limited for Asians. Here's Asian, 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 Asian. So most of these are limited for Asian, and it's going to have the economic data for Asian. So you can do that for African Americans, white. You can also do that for Hispanics simply by going to topics and switch on race and ethnicity. And you can select them that way, any one of these races. So is it, let me see, there we go. Anything else? Any other questions here?
Yes, let's look at one last question. Yes. Someone wanted to know about the PALMS tools.
That I'm not sure what you're referring to.
Yeah, so I think that we do have a data gem on the PALMS tools.
Oh, PALMS, okay.
Yes.
Yeah, that's actually, it's a geography. If you're talking about public use microdata, we have a geography in here called PUMAS. And this breaks the country into states, but within those states, it breaks the country into segments of about 100,000 people. So for example, if I go, I haven't done this, but if I go to Florida, these are all the PUMAs, PUMAs in Florida, and I can get data just for that. Now, usually working with PUMS data, we we have another data tool called MDAT, Microsoft Data Access Tool. There's a little way to find it here in the top right. It's a completely different tool. So that's not really under the scope of this webinar, but if you have an interest in that, please send the question in, or we can get you in touch with a data dissemination specialist in your state or in your area, and they'll be glad to go over that with you.
And Joe, I just want to let you know that we do have an MDAT webinar coming up in September.
Great. Okay. That's great. Well, Marilyn, are there any other questions?
I think the other ones we're probably going to take a look at and go to them in detail. So when we release all the questions, and they'll have full answers to them.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Joe. Thank you so much for your presentation. I also like to thank everybody who played a role in today's webinar. And of course, Thank you to the audience for spending your time with us this afternoon. So please right now take a moment to fill out the evaluation by following the link provided in the chat. We hope that you let us know not only what we can improve on, but what you enjoy from the session. Look out for the recording and the PowerPoint presentation on Census Academy by visiting census.gov/academy. We also want to remind you of our next webinar in this series, that is the American Community Survey, a comprehensive look, and that's taking place on Thursday, September 1st at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So that is going to bring us to a close. We thank you again, and we hope you have a great afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you.
This concludes today's webinar. Thank you for your participation. You may disconnect at this time.